Okay, this is part two of the series of videos that I'm making about the Mount Vernon Industrial Development Agency. Today's video, I'll talk about the estimated number of students who potentially could enter the school district as a result of these housing developments. So let me share my screen. Okay, part two, estimating the number of students entering the Mount Vernon City Schools from new high-rise rental housing. Let's start by listening to some of the comments made about the number of students, estimates on about the number of students at the 12/14/2023 IDA meeting. And this is with the Ms. Storrs, who did the cost benefit analysis, and the developer for Qwest.
So what data set are we using?
This is, I have a footnote predicting. It's the National Association of Home Builders published a study by Najiao dated May 1, 2020, which makes it much more recent and much more in keeping with the number of children in a household. And what the Zhao study does is it also looks at the differences in the number of school children, not just per bedroom, but is it a small housing project with 50 apartments, or is it a high rise? So this was research conducted by the National Association of Home Builders with a very large survey component. So they weren't just looking at demographic data, they were actually going out in the field.
You know, we have to find the communities that mirror our community and find out what the trends are in those communities, because higher income, less majority minority may not be the same reality here as it would be somewhere else. But then also, some of that is socioeconomic. And so when you have higher levels of lower AMIs, they tend sometimes to have a little bit more children. Lower income, you have more kids.
I would very much like to see a far more detailed study done based on current demographics and family patterns, and also taking into account very dense urban environments versus family patterns in suburbs where at least you have a small backyard. That hasn't been done.
To your point, that we all have to begin to look at to see what the true trend really is. It may be right, then it may be wrong.
If it's over, you do understand in our UTEP that we have adopted what a lot of the communities have. If your numbers are wrong, and we will analyze those annually, that there is a fee to be paid directly to the school district by the developer, correct?
Yeah. Which is why it's important that the estimated number for a number of new children is accurate in the projection and the cost analysis. But it also, on the other side of it, going to for the school district, is to also know that then there also has to be this this annual cooperation.
Okay, so we heard the mayor say that we need to find out the trends in the communities that mirror ours, so demographics that are closer to home. She pointed out that low-income families tend to have more children. This is correct. And she talked about the UTEP, that's the Uniform Tax Exemption Policy of the IDA, that they would be analyzing the numbers annually, and that there would be a fee that the developer would have to pay to the school district if their estimates are wrong. So in other words, if they estimate there'll be 20 kids entering the district and there are 40 kids, they would have to pay the difference to a per pupil fee. And then it was interesting, the mayor asked the controller, correct, after she said this. I think there was some uncertainty, and we'll take a look at the UTEP to see what it actually says. Ms. Storrs said that more detailed study, that you would like a more detailed study, but it hasn't been done. That The research she relied on was conducted by the National Association of Home Builders, a study authored by Na Zhao in May 2020. We're going to look at that. The controller said that it's important that the estimates are accurate, that Ms. Storr's estimates, I thought this was great, may be right or they may be wrong. That suggests like at least some degree of uncertainty about this, about whether or not the estimates are accurate. And he also talks about regarding the recapture policy of the UTEP, that the school district is going to have to cooperate on analyzing the numbers on an annual basis. So let's start by talking about the UTEP. This is the Uniform Financial Assistance and Benefits Recapture Policy. I had read the policies of the IDA previously, and when the mayor brought this up at the meeting, I was thinking, I don't remember that it's saying that about a fee to be paid by the developer if their estimates are wrong, an annual analysis. I didn't remember anything. So I reached out to the IDA and said, hey, can you point me in the direction of that language? The language isn't there. They just sent me what I was already familiar with, which was this. This is section 1.3, where it talks specifically about residential projects and the school district. And in red, I highlighted a couple of sections that I thought were pertinent. The first part, it says that the district is given the opportunity to comment on the estimates within 30 days of the application submitted for financial assistance by the developer. And the second piece is the bit about getting some money back. It says that the IDA board, in its sole reasonable discretion, can negotiate benefits for the school district that may include cash payments based on the number of students residing in the building, or remuneration or benefits for the district. So I guess this would cover what the mayor is talking about, but it doesn't say anything specifically about analyzing the numbers annually or fee paid to the school district. I think this policy would be more robust if it had specific language in there. I know I would feel more comfortable if there was specific language about that in there. So my initial questions about the UTEP policy we just looked at: did the school district provide written comments as they're allowed to regarding the potential impact of these projects? As far as I'm aware, they did not. I don't think they did. If they didn't, it's too late. According to the IDA rules, they had 30 days. Those applications for the developers for 115 Macquesten and Qwest were submitted months ago. So that ship has sailed. If they somehow can, convince the IDA to let them submit their written response about the estimates, I think that they should. It should be, even if they don't think it will be impactful on the district, they ought to submit something in writing. They should have legal counsel for the district submit something in writing to be on the record with the IDA. I think that's important for them to do that. Hopefully they can. I think we need to hold the mayor and the IDA board accountable for this bit about a fee being paid directly to the school district if the developer's estimates are wrong. It's not in that recapture policy specifically, but she said it, so we should make sure that it happens. Regarding this analyzing the numbers annually, cooperation between the school district and the developers, I don't know. I'm a little bit doubtful about that. Remember, these projects are over 30 years. IDA boards will come and go. School boards will come and go. If I were the developer, I'd be like, sure, put it in there if you want. What are the odds that anyone's actually gonna, keep track of this over time with so many moving parts? I have my doubts. And then, if they do lose track of it, we'll end up picking up the cost potentially of students that exceed the projections given by the developer. So I think that that's a legitimate concern. So let's turn now to the STORS analysis. How reasonable are the estimates in her analyses? Ms. Storr says that she uses this National Association of Home Builders study. One public school child for every 3 homes by Najau in May 2020. There's a link to the study. You can get it online. Ms. Storr says that the research was conducted by NAHB, and I quote, they were actually going out in the field. Here's the problem. This is not accurate. I don't know why Ms. Storrs said this, but it's just not accurate. And the NAHB did not conduct any field-based research. All that Najiao did was, and not to diminish it, because what she did was, I think, important, but all she did was she looked at census data from 2018 and she pulled that data and she put it into a more detailed format. They actually, NAHB calls it a special study, and we'll see that when we look at the study. But just to confirm that I wasn't, that this was what was going on here, I reached out to Na by email and asked her just to make sure that this was not actually the NAHB going out and doing field work, and she confirmed that it was not. So let's go further. This is from the Storrs analysis, and again, for both 115 Macquesten and Qwest, you'll find it in the same place. This is page 7. It says Storrs Associates applied public school enrollment multipliers for New York and high-rise multifamily apartments from the NAHB study to the unit mixes of these projects. So we're going to see if we can figure this out. First, let's make sure we're clear on multipliers. It's just something you multiply by. If you have a 10-unit dwelling, 1 child per unit, the multiplier is times 1, right? If you have a multiplier of 2 in the 10-unit dwelling, you're saying that you're going to have 2 children per unit, right, on average. If it's 0.5, the multiplier is 0.5. It's the number of units times the multiplier means there's going to be 5 kids. If it's 0.1, it's 10 times the multiplier of 0.1 is going to give you 1. So just so we know what that is, because we're going to see a lot of multipliers. That's really what the study is all about, is figuring out how to predict, if you have 100 units in a building, how many kids there will be in that building. You need a multiplier to do that. One question I had was, are the multipliers in the Storrs analysis valid for low-income urban high-rise housing developments? Remember, the mayor correctly observed that low-income families have more children. We're looking at high-rise, low-income housing development. So that seemed to be a natural question. So I asked since I had established communication with her, and this is what she said. She said, I don't think we have enough public data at a more granular level to examine this question at the low-income urban high-rise housing level. This matches what the mayor and the controller were both saying, and even Ms. Storrs acknowledged that we don't have more granular data. I think it's important to keep that in mind when we're assessing whether the estimates in these economic analyses are reasonable and accurate. Let's briefly take a look at this study so we can understand what multipliers, what it looks like, and the multipliers that are at play. Okay, here is the study from the National Association of Home Builders, Najiao's May 2020 study. You can see right out of the gate, she talks about the census data and that this special study looks at these data in more detail. So again, I'm not sure why Ms. Storrs said that this study was field work done by the National Association of Home Builders. Ms. Storrs talks about the New York data. Most of this paper is appendices for states. It's right here. I'm going to show, there's a couple other tables I'm going to show just for comparison purposes, that because I was confused. I tried to find the multipliers that Ms. Storrs used in the NAHB paper. I couldn't find them. So I thought, all right, she might have used from table 1 average number of public school children per housing unit by structure type. If you scroll down here, oh, by the way, she talks about high rises 50 plus units. That is not in this paper at all. The maximum units in this paper is 20 plus unit multifamily. So again, I don't know what Ms. Storrs, perhaps she misspoke, but that 50 plus unit high rise is not in here. So she must have mistaken the 20 plus unit. In any event, in this table 1, we can go to the 20 plus unit multifamily, renter occupied, recent movers into new construction, and think, all right, maybe she would use one of these multipliers. Again, this is when I was trying to figure out where her multipliers came from. So I thought it might have been there. Another one outside of the New York data was table 2, which was, she mentioned how the paper looked at 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. Notice though in here, it doesn't differentiate by structure type. So you can look at renter occupied, recent movers, new construction, and here are the multipliers for, all dwelling sizes: 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. There's nothing for studio. But I thought, all right, maybe she pulled the multipliers from here, but she didn't. So in any event, the ones that she mentioned were the New York multipliers, which are down here in the appendices. Most of the paper by Najau is appendices for states, and it's by dwelling type, and the maximum. It's not high rise, but which is important to note, because remember the mayor talked about that we need information on low income high rises. This doesn't give you that. It gives you multifamily 20 plus units, renter occupied, recent movers into new construction. So I was looking, I thought, all right, she might be using one of these numbers over here. These are the different multipliers for that. So I'm going to compare the multipliers that she used in her analysis with a couple of these. But anyway, you can take a look at this study for yourself. So I looked at these 3 potential multipliers for renter occupied units: table 1, which was the 20 plus unit; table 2, which was by bedroom; and then appendix for New York State, which gives you structure type and state, page 29. That's the one I think makes the most sense for her to use, since she mentioned that. But what I did here in this first table is I just laid all of the stuff from the National Association of Home Builders study out side by side, so you can see with the multipliers. We can drop these 2 rows because it's not going to be into existing homes or non-movers. We're going to drop those. So here are the multiplier options that we're looking at here. I think that these make the most sense over here, since she mentioned the New York high-rise number. That's where I think we ought to be looking for the Storrs analysis multipliers to be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the range here. I'm not going to do all 3, since these are very, very close. The low would be the into new construction, and then this other one for just renter occupied units. So we'll just look at this range here and see when we compare that what we get. So this next table here, this shows you the 2 projects, Qwest and 115 Macquesten. It shows you the number of rental units and the estimated numbers of students from the Storrs report. I pulled this from page 7 of the Storrs report. And then what I did is I was able to infer what the multiplier is by dividing. I just took the number of students divided by the units to get the multiplier. Because I was curious when I looked at these, I looked at it, I'm like, that doesn't seem right. Because I was looking for this to be the multiplier that you would see in the NAHB study, because that's what Ms. Storrs said she was using. If she used something else, I don't know. It doesn't say it anywhere in her reports. It says that she used the Najau study, but you see that there are different multipliers, and they're not even consistent across the 2 projects, which is odd. So this shows you the multiplier comparison. Okay, I show you the Qwest. I just took the Qwest numbers from up here and I just moved them this way. There's 115 Macquesten numbers. Okay. And then here are my 2 estimates, the high from the NAHB appendix and the low from an NAHB appendix. One thing that you should stand out right away, even if you just look at the low one, let's take a look at the low one. With the exception of one of Miss Store's multipliers, that's Qwest 3-bedroom, all of her multipliers are lower than what you see in the low end of the NAHB New York appendix, right? They're all lower. I don't know what accounts for that. I don't know where these multipliers come from. For 115 Macquesten, it's the same. It actually drops down for the 3-bedroom. It's even lower for the 3-bedroom. And I mean, to me, it makes sense that you would have the studio being lower than the 3-bedroom, but I don't understand how they came up with these multipliers. It just doesn't seem consistent to me. So I'll of course, submit written questions to the IDA about this. And maybe there's an explanation I'm not aware of, but I've thought about it and I looked, followed what was said, and I don't see it. And it has material impact. So here what I did was I took, again, it's the STORS student estimates. And what I did was I applied, showed what you would get if you use the multipliers from the NAHB study, the low and the high across the two projects. And what you find out is if you use even the low one, Miss Stores is off by 22%. This gives you an additional 6.3 students. So instead of 22, it would be, 28.3. On the high end, it's off by, 63%. It more than doubles, right? And the same thing here with Macquesten. I would guess that a conservative estimate, if we were going to use this study, would be somewhere in the middle. I would probably split it down the middle. Still, that's a much different than what's in the STORS report. So I don't know that these numbers in the STORS report are conservative at all. They seem like they could be a significant underestimate of the number of students that will move into these buildings. So my final thoughts here: one, why is there this big difference between the estimate in the STORS report and the multipliers in the NAHB study? I don't know why. Two, my concerns about the accountability piece of the UTEP for projects that last for 30 years. You'll have IDA boards change, school boards changed. I feel like that, holding these developers accountable could easily get lost in the shuffle. Then number three, are the estimates in the STORS analysis cautious and prudent? Remember, the controller said that the city needs to be very cautious and very prudent. So my question is, are these numbers cautious and prudent? I don't think they are. I don't even think they're conservative. They seem very, very aggressive to me. I also just point out that everybody seemed to agree that there are no data that drills down on the demographics, income demographics, even the high-rise piece and urban high-rise. It's just not there. And with that in mind, maybe the IDA in Mount Vernon ought to commission a study to get an idea. If we're going to be using the Industrial Development Agency to build low-income housing, and it seems like we are, there are these two studies and there are two more coming, likely coming, then we ought to be able to have good estimates on the impact on the public schools. And then finally, does this even matter? Remember, I pointed out the mayor said that she wants this housing to be filled with migrants from within the city. So I guess if we say, okay, if that's going to happen, we should figure out, well, what percentage of the building will be filled by internal migrants? Will it be half? Will it be 75%? That has an impact on the estimated number of kids. It has an impact across the board. This is why in the last video I pointed out that if that's true and it's going to be internal migration, then the economic analyses that Ms. Storrs did, setting aside all of the other problems that I think I've pointed out so far, it would have to be, they'd have to be adjusted to account for that. My hunch is that they can't come out and talk about it so explicitly and say, yes, we're going to fill these buildings with 50% internal migration, because they'll run afoul of the financing requirements that the developer is using with state and federal and county money to get this built. They can't show preference for city residents. That's the second video. I'm going to do one more video that will talk about these other community benefits that were added, particularly with 115 Macquesten, were added in a revised cost benefit analysis, and some of the Qwest other community benefits. And then we'll look at, what if this is, I'll look at a couple of other things I had questions about in the report. And then I'll end with, well, what if these guys are off? What if the numbers are off by 5%? What does that look like? What does it do to the overall numbers? Okay. Thank you.